Well, welcome back to another butchery video. We've got a nice big lamb in front of us. We're going to butcher for the Smallholding. We've already done a butchery video on a lamb, but we're going to do things a little bit different, so we thought we'd get it on video and document it and show you just a different way you can do it. Normally, when we have a lamb, we cut it up to utilise it the best for our family of 4, but we've got a few get-togethers coming up with Christmas, birthdays and other stuff, so we thought we're going to get some bigger joints off this one, so that'll feed a few more people in the group. Right, so same as on the last video, we're just going to cut it into 3 sections first. So we've got the shoulders, the trunk and the legs. So to get them off, we're just going to come behind the shoulders here, and we're just going to go 5 or 6 ribs in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Be 6 on this one, and then we're just going to cut through that bit of gristle there, down through the meat, and then just follow that to the other side, cut through that little bit of membrane there, and then you'll be able to cut through the joint with your knife on the bone and just cut the shoulders off. So you end up with a nice big pair of shoulders. We'll get back to them in a minute. And then the trunk from the legs, we'll just go from the inside about 1 inch or 2 in. If you don't hit the joint, don't worry, you can get it with the saw or the butt of your knife. And you just cut through there. So I've just missed the joint, but it doesn't matter. You can probably get it when you crack it like that. It opens right up, and then you just cut it through with your knife and separate the trunk from the legs. And then the last bit, we'll just separate these legs. So I just stretch them apart a little bit. If you want to, you can cut down that bit of meat with your knife, and just get your saw, cut straight through the tailbone and the idle bone with the knife, and then that's all done. So you've got your 2 legs, your saddle and your pair of shoulders. Right, so we're just going to start off with the legs. So on one leg we want a whole lamb leg kept on the bone as a centerpiece to go with another couple of joints for Christmas, and on the other leg we'll use that for another get together we've got coming up, but it's not as big, so we're going to cut the shank off, bone it out for the meat, and then cut the steaks off, and we're just going to have that joint left in the middle there. But we're going to take the bone out, put it back in, string it up so you cook it on the bone, and then that gets all the flavour from the bone. Then when you're finished, you just cut the string, pull the bone out and slice it into nice slices. So let's get on with them. Right, we're just going to start with the bottom of the tailbone here. You've got a piece of meat that runs down the side. You're just going to run your knife across the top of the bone, take that out, and then you've got a piece of meat in there, which we normally put it into dice, but today there's not going to be a lot of dice, so we're just going to put it all into mince. So we'll just take all that trim off, and then we're just going to put all that into mince. And then to get your bone, we're going to start here at the top of the isle bone. We're just going to come in with the tip of the knife, come down, just keep your tip of your knife close to the bone. Then we're going to come under the isle bone like that. We'll go a little bit deeper, but not too deep. And I'm going to hang it over the edge of the table. And then you just take it to the joint and just push down, and that'll just open the joint right up there. So then you go back to your knife and just start loosening that bone off. Cut through that joint there, keeping your knife nice and close to the bone. Try not to slash the meat as much as best you can. And then just come down the side of that tailbone, and there's your bone out. Just take that little bit of meat out the end, a little bit of meat out there. So then when your leg's like this, you just want to take that little gland out of there, a little bit of fat. I like to square it up, turn it round, just cut that square, and then all we're going to do to it now is get the steak knife and cut some nice steaks off that chump end. So we've cut the steaks off, got some nice lamb leg chump steaks off there. With the last bit of the leg, just going to cut that bit of tendon there, and then we're going to get the saw and we're just going to cut that foot off. And then all I like to do now, you don't need to because that's a solid bit of meat, so it'll hold itself together, but I like to just get a couple of strings and put one round the big, like your widest, meatiest part, and that just pulls that in. And then just another one just above that knuckle on the end of the bone there, and that'll just tidy up the bottom bit. And then when you turn that over, you'll have a nice rolled whole leg of lamb for your centerpiece for your Christmas table. So now we're just on to the second leg. So we just start off the same, trimming the rough fat off the top of the leg. Just tidy that up. And then the flappy bit of meat down the side. That bit of fat there, I'll just go in there. I'll just put it in there and separate them out later. And then again, back to the isle bone. So again, we're just going to go across the top of that bone, taking that big lump of meat out. Try not to get my arms in the way of the camera. Just going to pull that bit of meat out there and take that as much as we can off. I'll just go into mince. And then again, back to the isle bone. So we'll go in from the top there, down the side of the isle bone, around the joint, underneath. And then again, we're going to take it to the edge of the table and just break that joint like that. You can see it's opened up. So then you're just putting your knife in the joint, coming around the bone, just using the tip of your knife, and then just easing it out. And we'll just take that little bit of meat out of there, and there's your other leg boned out. And all we do is just tidy the ends up, square it up, back to your steak knife, and another 4 nice little chump end leg steaks. Right, so on this leg, we're just going to bone this shank out. Normally we take a couple of shanks off as well for a meal, but because we left it on that one, won't make much of a meal, so we're just going to use the meat off it for mince. So we're going to bone the shank out while it's still on the leg, which will leave us with a nice sized joint like that. And then we're going to tunnel the bone out, put it back in and string it up. So all we do to get that shank off is just again cut the tendon like that. And then we're just going to come up, you can see the bone there, so you're just going to come up the side of your bone until you hit the joint. And you're just going to go through that joint, and then you can see the bone's pretty much loose now. So you're just going to use that tip of your knife, just keep going around the bone, keeping nice close to the bone, just taking a little bit out at a time. And then you take your bone out for your stock, and then all you do with that is just square it up to the leg, and then you've got a nice big lump of meat that will just cut up, go through the mincer. I've got the shank off, I've got the chump off, I've just weighed it, we're left with like a 5-pound joint. So that's, once we get the bone out and you start staking it up, you're easily going to get 8 people to feed off that. Once you get your veg and everything with it, it'll stretch a long way. So to get this bone out, we're just going to start at this end, which is the shank end, and then you've got the little cap on here on the top. So we're just going to come down the side of that cap, like that, around the top of it, down the side. And then we're just going to go under the cap and take that off, away from the femur bone. And now we've exposed that, we're just going to go, you can see where the bone is at that side and this side. So now you've exposed the bone, you can see it goes in there and it comes out there. So you want to follow that line straight down there. So you're just going to put your tip of your knife into so you can feel the bone, and then you're just going to go down the side of the bone, around the top and around the other side. And then when you come down to here, just nice and gentle, you're just going to go underneath, just trying to stay as close to the bone as possible, so we're not slashing all the meat. Doesn't matter if you do a little bit. And then we're going to come to the other end of the bone and do the same thing. So pointing your knife up to the other end, we're just going to go in, keeping your knife close to the bone, and then just go around the sides, over the top, around the bottom, and then just going to go around the bottom of the bone, underneath. Just sort of shave your knife against the bone till you feel it turning and twisting, and then that should just pull out like that. Yeah, it's pretty clean. Right, so now what we're going to do now is just put the bone back in. So we cook it on the bone for the flavour, and then we'll just turn that over, stick some strings around it. So we're just going to put one in the middle, one on each end. Trying to keep the knots in line, just for a bit of presentation. And then there you go, your nice boneless rolled leg of lamb when you've cooked it. So like I say, you just cook that, and cut the strings, slide the bone out, and then you just carve it into nice slices, as thin or as thick as you like. So that's the legs all finished. You have a couple of nice centerpieces and the steaks for your teas during the week whenever you like. Right, so now we're going to get onto the middle. This is probably the faffiest bit we're going to do. So we're going to try and get one half of it is going to be the rack of lamb, and the other half we're just probably going to have a small double rolled loin of lamb. So first of all, let's get the kidneys out and get all the middle cleaned up. So you're just going to run your knife down the spine there, under all that suet, and then just close to the meat but not going too deep into it. Just going to take all that suet out and clean it up at the end as well. Get that out. And this side, same. Just take that out. Right. So we'll get your saw, pick your spot, you know, leave them as long or as short as you like, and then just cut through the top of them bones there, and then go to the other side, lean it the other way, get it roughly the same size, and then do the same thing, just through the top of them bones. Right, so now we're left with a short saddle, so all I'm going to do is clean these bits of lap meat out first, and then we're going to cut it off just after the last bone on each side. So I think we've left 7 bones here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, so 7, and there should be 7 if I've cut it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 7. So all we're going to do is just separate the rack side from the fillet side. So we're just going to cut straight down like that, and then straight down like that, and then we're just going to get the saw, cut through the spine, and then separate that off, and we'll get to that bit in a minute. And then we're left with a double rack of lamb. So all I'm going to do now is split this rack in half. So now we've sawn through the bone, just going to finish it off. I've taken your knife through there and separating that off, so you've got 2 separate nice racks of lamb. Right, so now we get to the fiddly part. So all we want to do now, because we're going to make it a rack of lamb, when you finished and cooked it, you want to be slicing through each chop and cutting it off, but you can't do that because of obviously you've got the spine bone on the bottom, so we need to take that off. But we don't want to be cutting into the eye of the meat. So we're just going to try and get the saw and cut just so we finish cutting, so it's just after that spine bone there. So if you just angle the meat or your saw, whichever you find easiest, and then just guide that through, just gently sawing away so that when it does go through, you don't actually hit the meat. Like that, it's just starting to break now. You can feel the saw cutting on the meat and not the bone. So then all you're going to do is get your knife and just going to ease it around that meat and down the spine bone, not going into the meat. And we'll take that bone off like that. I'll go into stock, and then we're just going to take that bit of gristle paddywhack out the bottom there, like that. that'll just go in the bin. And then all we need to do now is flip it over, take that bit of blade off, like that. That'll just go into stock, full of collagen. We're left with the rack with the chined off spine bone. So now all we're going to do, again, this, you can do this as close to the meat, as close to the eye meat as you like, or as far away. So I just flip it over and you can see where it's naturally thicker there. So I'll just cut across the bones like that. And then I'm just going to take my knife and scraping across the bones, going down and taking that out the bit of meat off. So you get to that point. So then that bit will just go into your mince. And then all you want to do now to French trim it is pick it up and then just go down the bones. So you're just going to go in and out, down all the bones. See, as close as the bones as you can, as much meat off as you can. And bones nice and cleanish, like that. That'll do for that one. So then you've got your one rack of lamb. So we're just moving on to the next one, doing exactly the same thing. So just tilt it up, get your knife, your saw, sorry, and then just going to cut down through that, chining the bone off, not going too far into the meat. You can hear it when it breaks. Back to your knife, and then just go and staying as close to that bone as you can, leaving as much meat on the rack as you can, and also taking out that bit of gristle at the bottom. And again, flipping it over, taking that bit of blade bone out the side and cutting it so you've got the same width as you have on the other one. And then again, just sliding your knife down them bones, not cutting your mince, and again picking it up and just French trimming your rib bones. And just tidy up however much you've left. And then you've got two single racks of lamb. Now all you want to do, if you want to be a little bit more fancy, you just pick them up and then we just interlock all the bones. So we have it like that, and then we'll run a couple of strings around it to hold it together. Just put one through them bones and just gently nip it tight, keep your knot on the top. Just go at this end. Again, just keep your knot on the top, just hold it together, and then when you've finished it, just put a nice sprig of rosemary on it, and then you've got a nice centerpiece double rack of lamb. Right, so we've just finished with the rack side. Now we're going to get on with the fillet side. Now this side, normally I like to cut these a bit smaller, because normally we use it either for cutlets or for double Barnsley chops like that. So then you'd cut them as a double Barnsley chops, but we're going to roll that and have it as a nice rolled, maybe even stuff it with something, and a nice rolled joint so it'll be like as big as that. It'll feed a few people. So to get started with that, we're just going to flip it over and we're going to loosen these two nice bits of fillet here, but we're leaving them in. So all we're going to do with them is just come down the side of the bone there, down the side of the spine bone, take your knife underneath them, keeping it nice and close to that spine bone so that you're not loosening these. You're just cutting through the membrane to the end of the bone. You'll know when you get to the end of the bone. You can just feel it, not just see it. So once you get to the end of the bone there, you feel your knife going down. So this is still nicely attached. We do again the same with the other side. Just go down the side of the bone there. And just go under, keeping it nice and close to the spine bone. And then you'll see when you come off the end of the spine bone, which is there. And then again, so both your fillets are still nicely attached, so they'll be nice and tight in it when you roll it. Again, doesn't matter if you cut this thing, again, doesn't matter if you cut the meat, you can always put them back in. So next, we're just going to try and go under these two rib bones here and stop when we get to that spine bone there. So what we're going to do is tip it up and then just ease your knife under each one. Make sure you get under them like that. And then as you're pulling down with your hand, you can go under the meat, keeping your knife pointing up to the bone so that when you loosen it, you can see all the bone there. And then we're going to come down the side of the spine. And what you want to be careful not to do here for presentation, so I hope I don't cock it up, you don't want to be going through this layer of fat here. It's a lot easier if you have a fattier lamb. As you can see, this one's got not a lot of fat on it, so it's going to be a bit more difficult, but you want to be trying not to break that bit of skin. So we're just going to ease it under like this. And then once we get down to that skin on one side, just leave it about there. We'll just flip it over and do the other side. So again, just easing your knife under them ribs. Keep as close to the ribs as you can till you hit the spine. And we're just going to come down the side of that spine. You can't see it a lot, so you've just got to feel it with your knife, and pulling and cutting at the same time until we get down to that bit of spine bone that's sticking down like that and attaching to that skin. So once we get to that point, you just do it as best you can now to get under and around the spine. It's shaped like the letter T. If you imagine that's the T, it's shaped like that's the pointy bit down of the T. So you want to be going underneath that and up and back up the other side. So whichever side you're more comfortable working on, and just keep trying to check you're not going to cut the skin. I hope I don't mess it up for the camera. It's a one take deal. Once you've got it nipped at one end, once you've freed it at one end, you should be able to pull most of it and it should come away itself. So you might just keep leaving the nick near the bone and just easing it out with it so it'll tear out like that, and then so there's your spine bone out, and there's your nice flat bit of fillet end of loin, and when you flip it over, not a slice mark in sight. Chuffed with myself. Right, now we just flip it back over and just check, see if you've got all the membrane out, check, see if you've got all the paddywack out. There's not much left in there, so that looks pretty good. So then all we do is roll it from one side into the middle, and then roll the other side into the middle, and then when you roll them both touching tight, flip it over, and then when you string them up, you'll have a nice rolled loin of lamb. Probably just put 3 strings around it, it'll be all right. So we just put one in the middle, and then if you just stop your knot across the top of the spine bone, mark where the spine was, and then one at that end. Try and keep your knots in a line. Presentation's the key. Another one. And then all we do, you don't have to, but I like to because I'm a bit of a fuss. Just get the ends, straighten that end up, straighten that end up. And then all you do now, when you come to display it, you can either leave it loose or tie a bit of rosemary on. And then you've got two beautiful joints of lamb out the saddle. Right now we'll just deal with the laps, get them out of the way. This is just basically all going into mince. So we're just going to cut the big chunks of meat out the top there. And then we'll just flip them around. I like to take this bit of rough gristle off the end. You don't want that in your mince. And then where your little rack of bones is, we're just going to go down the side where you can see the white line. I'm just going to take that down the side of the bone. And then you can probably pretty much get your fingers underneath and just tear them out. And they'll go into your stock. And then that will just go into mince. Same again with this side, just come down the side there, taking that bit of hard gristle out. And then again the bone, you can see the white line going down there, so we just run your knife down the bottom of it, loosen the bone, and just get your fingers under, and you'll be able to pull most of that out. And then just trim off what you can, I'll go into stock. And then there's another bit for your mince. Right, so lastly, onto the shoulders. So first of all, what we're going to do with these is we're going to take the neck off, because we use that for soups, stews and stock. So we're going to cut that into slices, make it easier to deal with and get as much meat off as we can. So we're just going to start with that. So we're just going to cut it into some decent sized slices, make it 3 or 4 slices off it. Depends how far up the neck you want to go. We'll get 4 because you don't really want to use that bit on the end there. So you just get your saw and then saw through. And then once you're through your bone, just get your steak knife, cut that off, and then just cut them into nice scrag end slices. Just put that one into stock, and there's your nice scrag end of lamb slices. Now all we're going to do with this is just do 2 nice big rolled shoulders of lamb. So first of all, we need to split it in half. So all we're going to do is get the knife, and where you see that bone there, we're just going to come down either side of that spine bone so that we separate the 2 halves. So we're just going to start on the sides of the bone, just run your knife straight down the 2 like that, and then we'll flip it back over, and we start from taking the meat off the rib bones. So all I want to do is take the meat off and separate the 2 halves. So you're just going to start from the top of each one, a bit of sew it out, and then you're just going to run your knife in the tip at the top of each one, and then as you get down to the side, you can see the bone, you just go in, touch the bone with the tip of your knife, and then just run the tip of your knife in a few sweeps just down the rib bones until you get to the bottom there where the neck fillet is, and then you're just going to come round underneath, try not to cut into that neck fillet, going underneath the spine bone, and the cut you've already made at the bottom will just separate it off nice and easy like that. So there's your 1 half, just repeat for the other side. So you're just going to go again down to open that top up so you can get to the bones, and then you just get your knife until you feel the bones, and then flip it up, and again just sliding your knife a few passes down the bones until you get to that nice neck fillet at the bottom there, and then it'll just come loose at the bottom. So you're left with your 2 half shoulders of lamb. And all I'm going to do with this bit of carcass is just take the meat off, just go in between the rib and then rib bones. You can be as fussy as you like, because this bone's just going to go into stock anyway. Once we get the meat out, we'll just cut it in half so it can fit in the stock pot. Take a nice meaty bit bits out. And like I say, we'll just cut that in half and it'll just go with the rest of the bones into the stock. Right, so now we'll get on with rolling the shoulders. Right, so first of all, we're just going to start with taking the bit of gristle out the bottom, or the paddy whack, whatever you like to call it. So we're just going to trim that like that. It's all seamed, so you're just going to have to catch the seam, and then the rest of it I'll just pull out like that. Now we've got to find the joint for the scapula or the blade bone. So there's the end of your scapula there, and it goes up to around about here. So all we're going to do first is get all this big thick lot of fat out of the side there. There'll be a bit more to tidy up once it's done. We'll get that out to start with. And then we're just going to find that blade bone. If you put your finger on, your thumb, you can sometimes feel the bone. If not, you just go in where most of this fat is and just get your knife in and then just keep pulling apart, and you'll find that there's the blade bone joint there, joining the other bone up there. So all you do is get your tip of your knife and break that bone. Like that. You can see it's breaking there. And then all you want to do next is, that's the top of your bone, and there's your plate down here. So you want to come down the side of that bone on the opposite side of your fillet. You don't want to be going down that side and cutting through your fillet. So you want to be coming down this side, and don't go through too deep, so you don't want to be going through the skin. So then once you've freed up that bit, you just want to get your tip of your knife and come across the top of the blade bone, going under that fillet, but not coming out of the side of your meat. So you're just opening and freeing up that blade bone. Then we're just going to come down this other side of the blade bone, not too deep, just like that. And then we're just going to come through the top of that joint, going underneath with your knife until it stops at a bone under there. You only want to be going under that far, and you just get your finger in, lever that side with your finger, just pull, and it'll just come away from the meat, leaving most of the meat on the shoulder. What it doesn't, you just get your knife, try not to cut through the skin on the other side, go down your scapula, take that little bit of meat out there for your mince, and then that will just go into your stock. So then you can fold it back up and it looks something like that. Right, so next up we're going to take this shoulder bone out. So it goes along there. Depending how you've had it tied up, we skewer ours up so that it keeps the bone like this. Sometimes they leave them out hanging like that, but we have ours tucked in, so your bone is going to go that sort of shape like that. So it goes along there and up there. So we're just going to trim this bit of meat off there, and we're going to flip it round and do it from this side. So we're going to get this bone out first. So we're just going to come up the side of the leg and take the big bit of meat off on this side, which will just go into mince. And then stretch the leg out a little bit so you can get your knife in that side. And we're just going to break through that, keeping your knife close to the bone, and go under the bone. And then you should have freed up pretty much all of your bone. Now you've got a joint in here, so all you want to do is come up there and cut down, and the joint will pretty much just break itself. And you just go around that joint, take that bit of meat off there. There's one of your bones out. So then back to this, we're just going to square that up with a bit of shank meat off for mince. And then we get to tunnel bone and this bone out here. So you can see this one's opened up and it's exposed both ends. So that's one end there, the other end there. So you're just going to go straight through, tunnel bone it like we did on the leg. So we'll just start from this end, get your knife in, tip of your knife, come down either side of the bone. Doesn't really matter, as long as you're not cutting through the skin of the lamb. It doesn't really matter how much of a mess you make inside, because it's all going to be rolled inside, so it don't have to be too finicky about it. And then we just scrape down so it's loosened that end. We'll just flip it round and do the same with the other end, going back up to that one. So we'll just go in and round. Just trying to keep just your tip of your knife so you're not going too deep. You don't want to be coming out of that side of the lamb. And once you can get your fingers underneath, you can just prise it up using the tip of your knife, spin it round, scraping the bone as you go, and then the bone will just come out, go into stock, and then you'll be left with a boneless shoulder. So now what we're going to do at this point, you've got a big lump of fat at this end, and it's got a gland in it, so you want to get that out. So we're just going to gently seam it away and get your knife underneath, just breaking the fat and the skin, trying not to go through the other side. And then we just ease it out with your fingers, and then once you've got that out, you can see there's the gland in there. You don't want to get that in your meat, so that just go in the bin. And then all we're going to do now is just square that up and then flip it over and just square it all up, and then all you do is get that end and that end, and then just roll them both in the middle like that, so it's nice and tight. And we'll get the string again, start in the middle, just keeping your knots, if you can, in a nice line. Probably put 5 strings on this one. And then again, once you like that, you can leave it like that if you like, but I'll just like to square the ends up. Just gets you a bit more mince, and it just makes it look a bit nicer when it's on the table. You just square them 2 ends up, and then you've got your full, lovely rolled shoulder lamb. So all we're going to do is just duplicate that with the next one. So we're going to have 2 nice big joints, and that'll probably feed about 8 people. Right, so we're just going to do the same thing with this side, obviously just the opposite way around. So we're going to trim that fat out the side to start with. Get the meat off what you can. And then we're going to take that paddy whack out the bottom. Again, we're going to start with the blade bone. So you get your finger on, search for the joint, and you just get your knife, go in with the tip, and then you'll find the joint, which is there. You're just going to break the joint. Again, coming round the side, the opposite side to where your neck fillet is. You don't want to be going down the other side and cutting through your neck fillet. So you want to be coming down that side, going under, keeping it nice and close to the bone, not the meat. And then again, just nick under the top, get your finger in, pressure, pull that out. It's a bit stickier. Just pull that away. And then we just go down the side of the bone, like that. And just trim any excess off you want. We'll fold that back up, back onto the shoulder. So we'll just pull that to the side, go down the side of that bone, take the big bit of meat out for your mince, and then down the other side, underneath, and then just crack the joint. And again, just go tip of your knife around the bone. Just come out like that. So we're just going to tunnel that bone out again. So just going in from one side, keeping your tip of your knife on the edge of the bone. When you can get your hands under it, just pick it up, scrape down the bone. You get in from the other side and just meet up with the cut you've already done. Coming around the bottom until you get your fingers under it, and just prise it up, get your knife in, again just using your tip, scraping down the bone, and then that'll just pull out. So like again, there you're left with your boneless shoulder. So we want to take the gland out of this end, so we just go around the fat. Sometimes you expose the gland, sometimes you don't even know it's there, but you definitely want it out. Again, it's got a nice layer of fat on it, so it's easy to take out, and there's the gland right inside there. So same as last time, I'm just going to square the ends up, flip it over, take that, square that flap up, and then get the two ends, fold them into the middle like that, and again 5 strings on it. And then again, once you finished it, you can leave it like that if you want, but again I like to tidy the ends up, it gives us more mince. Just tidy the ends up there so nice and square. And then you've got your 2 lovely bone and rolled shoulders of lamb, which will make a lovely centerpiece for any table. Right, so there we go. After an hour's work or so, we've got 6 nice big lovely family get-together sized joints that'll look good on any table for the future events we've got coming up. We've got the 8 lamb steaks we'll just enjoy through the weeks, and then we've got the lamb scrag end there, which will just go into soups and stews. We've also got a nice big pan of bones there, which will just go in for stock, and we've got a nice big bowl of mince, which we'll get about 3 or 4 family sized shepherd's pies out of that. So not bad for an hour's work. Pleased with how it all turned out. It all went well on the first go. So I hope you've enjoyed the video and seen what you can do with a carcass of lamb, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.